Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. Can I welcome any members of the public, elected members and council officers to the first Development Standards Committee meeting of this new term of Angus Council. My name is David Cheap and I've been elected convener of the Development Standards Committee. I'm also local elected councillor representing Carnoustie District, but this committee is made up of 13 Angus councillors from a broad range of wards across Angus. Just before we commence the formal business of the committee, I would particularly like to acknowledge the contributions made to the Development Standards Committee by two former Angus councillors. David Lumgear was a member of this committee for 20 years and was convener for 10 of these years. Similarly, Alex King, who was a long time member of this Angus Council and past convener of this committee. And as a new councillor elected 5 or so years ago, I, and I'm sure others around this virtual table, learned much from their experience and leadership. They may have been on opposite sides of the political fence, but I always found them entirely professional and thorough in how they carried out their duties as members of this committee. And I'm sure all members, old and new, will join me in thanking them for their contributions. Now, as we move on into this new area, first of all, Sarah, have we any apologies for absence?
Yes, convener, we have apologies from councillors Duff, Fairweather and Stewart.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2 is for declarations of interest. Can I ask members present if anyone has any declarations of interest with regard to the items on today's agenda? None from the elected members. Jill Patterson?
A bit of an unusual circumstance, but I'd like to declare an interest in items 10 and 11 this morning as the applicant, so I will remove myself from the meeting when those items are being considered.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, agenda item 3 is on committee membership, and the committee is asked to note that the membership is as agreed at the meeting of Angus Council on the 26th of May 2022 and is as shown on the covering letter to this agenda. Is that noted? Thank you. Agenda item 4 on the Development Standards Committee remit is as appended at page 4 to the papers, and that's the remit of the committee, and it's just for noting. So can I ask, is that noted?
Noted.
Thank you very much. Right, agenda item 5 relates to the Development Management Review Committee, and the committee is asked to note that the remit and composition of the Development Management Review Committee will be as detailed on the agenda. But the committee requires to appoint 5 members from this Development Standards Committee to the Development Management Review Committee, and then to go on to elect a convener and vice convener of the DMRC from those 5 members. So I can bring forward that the administration are nominating Councillor Duff, Councillor Brays and Councillor Darnell from the administration for the DMRC. Can I ask members of the non-administration if there are any nominations for the DMRC? Councillor Nicholl?
I would like to nominate myself, as possible.
Okay. Is there another member from the non-administration group who would like to stand or be nominated? There's there's another one space. We can run with 4 at the moment, but if we can perhaps go, if there's no other. Oh, Councillor Dorn?
Yeah, I'd be happy to put myself forward for that.
Okay. Is there any other nominations?
Councillor Ball was going to come in there, convener.
Sorry, Councillor Gall, I didn't see you with the hand up, sorry.
So,
Okay.
yeah, no, I'd be happy to sit on that.
Okay, there is, at the moment, the DMRC is constituted to have 5 members, and it's 3 from the administration and 2 from effectively the opposition. And Councillor Dorn, as you're not in that formal opposition, we'd have to bring, if you do wish to join the DMRC, we'd have to bring a report to the next Committee of Development Standards Committee to expand the DMRC to 6 members. So at the moment, if there are just the 2 members from the non-administration, we can run with Councillor Nicholl and Councillor Gall. But as I say, Councillor Don, if you do wish to join, we can bring this report back to the next committee in August and extend it to 6. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so can I just, for the members for Councillor Duff, Councillor Brays and Councillor Darnell. I'm nominating them. Can I have a seconder for those three nominees? Councillor Melville seconding. Thank you very much indeed. And for Councillor Nicholl and for Councillor Gall, they've each been nominated. Can I have a seconder for those two appointments? Councillor McLaren, thank you very much. Okay, that formalises the membership of that. Now, to elect a convener, do I have any nominations for the convener of Development Management Review Committee? Councillor Brays?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Duff for convener.
Okay. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. I would happily second that. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations for convener? Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. Councillor Duff will be appointed convener. And now nominations for vice convener of the DMRC. I think the administration have said that they're willing to, just to keep balance here and opportunity, that we would offer this to the non-administration if they wish to take up the appointment of vice convener. So whether Councillor Nicholl or Councillor Gall would like to be nominated for vice convener. Councillor Nicholl, did you not mention to me before you were interested in this?
Thank you. I was previously convener, so vice convener would be a great honour.
Okay, good. So can I have a seconder then for Councillor Nicholl as vice convener? Councillor McLaren?
Yes, I'd be happy to approve that.
Right, thanks for your help, everybody, with that. That appoints Councillor Nicholl as vice convener. So thank you. So can I just make sure that's all noted? Everybody happy with that and agreed? Yeah. Thanks very much indeed. Good. Okay. The agenda item. I should make note as well, obviously, there is training for the Development Management Review Committee. You will have received an email about that, which is required, obviously, for membership. So if everybody could note that, make sure they're available for the training for that committee. Agenda item 6 is on building warrants, and the committee is asked to note that during the period 28th of March to the 10th of June 2022, a total of 154 building warrants, 2 demolition warrants and 34 amendments to warrants have been approved with an estimated cost of £13,152,599, and a copy of the approved warrants has already been sent to all members. Do we agree to note that?
Noted.
Thank you.
Noted.
Agenda item 7 is on delegated decisions, and again the committee is asked to note that during the period, again 28th of March to 10th of June, a total of 163 planning applications have been approved and 4 refused under the scheme of delegation to officers. Again, do we agree to note that?
Noted.
Thank you very much. The minute of the previous meeting held on the 5th of April 2022 has been circulated and it's now being submitted for approval as a correct record of that committee meeting. Are the minutes agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Right, thank you everyone. We'll move on to agenda item 9 now, which is a planning application, report 16822 on a garage, conversion of a garage at St Mary's Road, Montrose. So, Mr Taylor, do you mind starting off the slides on this one, please?
Thank you, convener, and good morning, members. I will just pull up the slides. Just bear with me a second, please. is a pedestrian through route via the footway which runs along the north side of St Mary's Road and connects through to Panmure Place to the east. So this is a pictometry image of the site. So the plain hipped roof garage is shown. As I say, it's a Category C listed building in association with the terrace which runs along the north side of St Mary's Road. It's worth noting at this stage that the application has attracted, I think, 7 representations raising objections relating to parking issues primarily, as well as impacts on the historic environment. In terms of parking, the application does not propose any in-curtilage parking. That wouldn't be possible. It's a small site and would reuse an existing stone building. In considering the acceptability of that matter, it's noted that the application site is located very close to the defined town centre and has very good pedestrian connections to the town centre services. It has good pedestrian connections to public transport via the bus and train, and is located reasonably close to established cycle routes, including national to the east of the site towards the links area. Now, as I say, objections are received relating to concerns about parking. It's also worth noting at this stage that there is unrestricted parking on some of the surrounding streets, such as those streets, the wide street to the west of the site, Panmure Terrace, Panmure Place. There's areas along those streets where unrestricted parking is available. It's not uncommon when considering applications in or close to town centres for proposals to not include dedicated parking. The road service has been consulted in relation to that matter, and they have no objection. As I say, this is a sustainable location with good access to public transport, good pedestrian access to services, and on that basis, that matter is not considered to raise any issues which would render the proposal to be unacceptable. So I've just got some plans of the proposal. So as I suggested, this is a relatively plain stone garage. The proposal doesn't propose any significant alteration or intervention to the structure. The main form of the building will be kept. The stone walls are repointed, the hipped slate roof kept, and the cast iron finials retained on the roof. Would be the removal of the timber garage doors and the installation of a new pedestrian door and glazed screen on the street elevation. There's 2 roof lights in the roof which will be replaced, and 2 lights will be installed, and planning conditions are proposed to ensure that where possible they will be conservation style roof lights. Draw members' attention to the slide. So the application proposes the living accommodation primarily on the ground floor of the property. They have come up with a relatively imaginative proposal to create or to reuse and create a bedroom in the first floor as a mezzanine level. It would provide a small house, but it's considered that would provide a reasonable residential environment for the would-be occupant. Plans of the building are shown on the right-hand side. So the ground floor would be an open plan living, dining, kitchen with a small shower enclosure and a stair leading to the mezzanine bedroom level. On the left-hand side, we see the site plan. It shows the interventions proposed to the roof, so that the roof lights on the north and east elevations exist. They will be replaced and new roof lights installed on the west and south elevations of the property. To the front of the property, there's currently a cracked concrete surface that will be replaced by stone slabs. Bins will be stored in this area. Ensure a suitable bin enclosure is formed so that the bins don't have a significant impact in terms of their appearance in the street. Bear in mind, this is a listed building located within the conservation area. I have just right now, so this is taken from Baltic Street looking east down St Mary's Road. So the application property is located on the right hand side in this location. This is the 2.5-storey Category C listed terrace, and as I say, the stone garage building is listed in association with that property. But the interventions proposed to the building are relatively minor. They would allow the existing opening on the street frontage to be retained. It's clearly a modern intervention, but it clearly allows the observers to understand the history of the building and its previous use. This photograph also shows the fairly limited parking available on the street and the position of double yellow lines, and north side which links through to Panmure Place to the east. Looking back the other way, back towards Baltic Street and the back of the application property on the left, as I say, the main intervention is the replacement of this garage door with a new glazed screen and pedestrian door. So bringing matters together, as of 7 objections received from 5 households which live in and around the area, raising issues relating to parking and concerns about impacts on the historic environment, and those matters are addressed in the report before members. The application has attracted no objections from consultees and is considered to comply with development plan policy. It would allow for the reasonably sympathetic reuse of a Category C listed building towards sustainable development, and on that basis the application is recommended for conditional approval.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning, Mr. Taylor. Just one or two things that I'm not reading in here. Can I say straight away, I do see this as a good use of a derelict building for all the things that you've said. But I just would like a couple of questions answered, if you don't mind, as a new person to Angus. Now, I'm aware of conservation situations. I have been a councillor before. I am aware that there's certain things you can and cannot do. But I always think about sustainability, and I'm thinking about solar energy. Now, I just wonder, we speak about the windows, which are going to be changed from the north and the east, the north and the south to west and east. And to my mind, they don't attract quite so much sunlight west and east as you do north, as you do south facing. And I'm thinking in terms of, is it a complete no-no to have solar panels on such a roof? That would be my first question. I think the answer is we can't have them, but I'd like you just to clarify that, please.
Yeah, so my understanding of government policy is you basically should try not to have interventions of that type of nature on principal elevations. So you would normally try and site these things on secondary elevations. So I don't think it's a complete no-no. We would explore what the options are in that type of situation. So if a property had a curtilage, you would consider things like, is there an opportunity for freestanding structures that don't involve any intervention to the fabric of the building? But on a structure such as this, were the proposal to include solar panels, given that the south elevation isn't a principal elevation, I wouldn't have said that it's a definite no-no. I would have said that if they were cited carefully, that would have been a possibility. Now, that doesn't form part of the proposal, and there is no specific policy requirement for it. But were the applicant to propose that in future, if it was cited carefully, then I couldn't say that it would definitely be a no. We just have to consider the detail of that as and when it came in.
Thank you. That's helped me immensely. And I can see that in that road, we haven't got exactly a new house in the country as such, because it is part of a cohesive group, isn't it? I mean, it's already there. So that would be something else, which takes me to another wee point, which is obviously always a problem for people when you see restricted parking. They'll have to sort that out, obviously. It's been accepted, the roads, etc. But I'm just wondering, in terms of, can we just assume that this is an adopted road, considering there's yellow lines, etc. on it? Because that is a big problem at times for people.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. My understanding is that St Mary's Road is an adopted road, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Convener.
Good questions on these. Interesting. Councillor Brace.
Well, yes, thanks, Convener. And just, I suppose, following on from Councillor Clark there, the objections are concerned with parking to a large extent. And I wondered if you could just give us a wee bit more clarification on where parking fits within our decision making here.
So I think it's fair to say that that the road service would expect parking to be provided if we're talking about a greenfield site where there was space, you had a blank canvas to work with. So there are parking standards. For smaller properties, you would normally expect a single space. For larger properties, maybe 2 or 3 spaces. The development plan, which is the thing that we use to make our decisions, doesn't specify a specific level. It's more of a judgment, which allows us in circumstances like town centre areas or historic parts of the town where it would be absolutely impossible to provide parking in like old buildings above shops, for example, it allows us still to bring these buildings back in a purposeful use. So when we're looking at the specific to very sustainable location in terms of access to public transport, in terms of pedestrian access to services, so the judgment in this case we've applied is that that lack of on-site or in curtilage parking is not unacceptable. And in coming to that view, we've obviously had regard to the availability of parking on surrounding streets as well. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. That makes it quite clear to me.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Brays. Has anyone else got any questions for Mr. Taylor? Okay, there are no speakers for this agenda item today, so we can move on to comments. Is there any members who have any particular comments they'd like to make on the application? Start with Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse the voice. I intimated earlier that I really felt this was good use, and I'll go back to what we used to say, and one of my colleagues, Jill Patterson, will have heard me saying this before. This is a good example of a red up. You know, you are redding up an area, you're making good use of it, and I compliment you on that. We seem to have looked at everything, so it has my support if you needed it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Brays.
Well, yes, I think that to do anything other than approve this would really be a major departure from our policy. And none of the statutory consultees have any objections to it. I do recognise that this may cause parking issues for people who have become used to having the parking that they do in that area. But I really don't think that would be grounds to refuse this.
Okay, Councillor Brays, thanks very much. Is there any further comments from members? No? Okay, thank you. Well, there's no further comments. I'm going to actually move to approve this application. The main objection does relate to parking, I get that, and there have been some comments about replacing cobbles and stones in the heritage of the street. But on the parking, it's not uncommon, as other people have members have mentioned, for housing in older parts of Angus towns to lack dedicated car parking, and as we know, the road service has no objection to this proposal. There is parking in streets surrounding it and also in the Baltic Street car park at the top of the road. So as I say, I'm going to move this application for approval. Is there anyone with an amendment? No, okay. In that case, application number 22/00119 full is hereby approved. Thank you very much for that. And we'll move on to agenda items 10 and 11, which will be a joint presentation, item 10 deals with the planning application, and agenda item 11 will deal with the listed building consent. So we'll start off and over to Ms. Porter for the slides here.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning, everybody. If you just bear with me, I'll try and share my screen.
I should say before we start here that we are dealing with 3 St Ninian Square in brief, never mentioned actual address. Carry on, Steph.
Fine. Can everybody see that okay now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so as this presentation deals with agenda items 10 and 11, which is for planning permission and listed building consent applications which seek to replace 6 single glazed windows with 6 double glazed windows at 3 St Ninian Square in Brecon. The applications are before committee as the applicant is a senior member of the planning service. So as you can see on this slide here, the property is located on the east side of St Ninian Square Conservation Area, which is highlighted by the blue polygon. And the application property is a Category C listed 1.5-storey semi-detached cottage, which is indicated with the red dot here. This slide shows the application property on the right with the 2 arrows highlighting the location of the 6 windows which are to be replaced as part of this application. The 6 windows make up the 2 first-floor canted dormers on the principal elevation of the property, and all existing windows within these dormers are currently 1/1 pane configuration, whereas the proposal seeks to replace these with the 2 central windows being a 4/4 pane configuration and the 4 flanking windows with a 2/2 pane configuration. This would replicate the windows which you can see here in the neighbouring property number 5. Listed building consent was approved for the windows within number 5's dormers in 2009, and both properties benefit from a joint listing where the statement of special interest refers to the importance of the properties shown in the images as a pair. Historic Environment Scotland guidance notes that replacement windows should replicate the existing design, but also notes that where modern replacement windows or inexact windows exist, the replacement should aim to regain the original pane pattern. Historic Environment Scotland and Angus Council guidance both allow for double glazing in historic windows. So the pane configurations as part of this proposal do not replicate what's currently in the building, but would replicate a pane configuration which is understood to be the original pane configuration of the windows and would mirror those windows at number 5. All of the proposed replacement windows would be timber, traditional style, sliding, sash encased, double glazed units which would be painted white. The frame finish and the opening method would remain the same as existing. On this last slide here, you can see the right-hand image indicates one set of the proposed units, and on the left-hand image, you can see the edge of the application property and the existing windows in number 5. So to conclude, this proposal would unify the application property with number 5 and improve the likeness of the properties when viewed as a pair. The proposal would reinstate what is understood to be the original pane configuration, improve the property's thermal efficiency, and is broadly consistent with Council and Historic Environment Scotland guidance. The proposal raises no issues against policy PV8 of the local development plan, and as such, both applications are recommended for approval.
Great, thanks. Can I ask if there are any questions for Stephanie from elected members? Okay, no questions. Okay, there are no speakers here. Is there anybody like any comments to make on this application for the planning application? Councillor Darnell?
Yeah, I would just say that it would be good if both the houses look the same. Obviously, now we're going for energy efficiency in houses, and it would be nice if they're double glazed and keep the heating bills down. That's going to be coming ahead of us. So I'm quite happy to approve this one. Thank you.
Okay, move on to Councillor Brays.
Well, thanks, Convener. Firstly, I would like to say that I do recognise the additional burden that people are faced with when they live in such areas, because they're expected to comply with so much more. In this particular case, I think this is going to be a huge improvement actually to what is already a very pretty area of Brechin. And it's quite an important area of Brechin with its proximity to St Ninian Square and of course the Caledonian Railway Station. A lot of people see it, and I think this will be actually a big improvement, and so I welcome it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brays. Councillor Clark?
I don't need to say very much, Convener, because my 2 colleagues have said it, but what I would really like to sum up with extremely sympathetic. I approve.
Okay, thanks for that. We want to Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you very much, Convener. I do have to agree with what's been said. This will greatly increase the installation value of the property, and also it will look good. I approve of it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beattie?
Yeah, I agree with the rest of my colleagues. In terms of energy efficiency, it's absolutely important that we get units such as this into these windows, and it ties those two cottages very nicely together, makes them look very smart, and it'll make that square even more attractive for passers-by.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, just summing up here, the proposed windows certainly would match the windows in the adjacent property and would allow both the listed cottages to have a more unified appearance and improve the thermal efficiency, as has been mentioned. And the application for planning permission complies with policy. There are no material considerations which would justify refusal of planning permission. So I will move approval of this application. I take it there are no amendments. Okay, thank you. In that case, application number 22/00124 full is hereby approved. The listed building consent comes next. It's report 170/22, and we've already heard the presentation from Ms. Porter here. Do any members have any further questions of the council officer based on the listed building consent? No? Okay, again, are there any comments people want to make on the listed building consent? No? Okay, makes sense. In this case here, the listed building consent is... Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Clark, do you have your hand up, or are you... You're on mute, Councillor Clark.
Really, thank you, Convener. Just a quick mention, really, that it's been said before about what people have to put up with. We have to be realistic what we're doing with these buildings. We have to move on. And what I'm seeing today is just doing that. Thank you very much.
Okay, good stuff. Any other further comments? Okay, the listed building consent is recommended for approval as the proposal would not give rise to any significant impacts on the character of the listed building. And as such, I am happy to move approval also of this application. No amendments, then application 22/00123/LBC is hereby approved. Thank you, everyone, on that one. We now follow with 3 proposal of application notices. We'll take each one in turn. I think Mr. Taylor's going to be dealing with these, I think. So we'll start off with agenda item 12. It's a proposal application notice. I've got the pronunciation wrong again, so I'm going to let Mr. Taylor say which mood it is in Forfar. So over to you, Ed, please.
Thank you very much, Convener. I'm going to go with Mintriment Moor for this one. I'm happy to be corrected.
Councillor Beattie will probably keep me right here because I think you mentioned it earlier on, but we'll go with that. Thanks very much.
Before I start, I just thought I would recap what it is that we were considering. As you suggested, there are 3 of these applications. So at its meeting of the 19th of June 2014, Angus Council approved a guidance note on the role of councillors in the pre-application procedures in respect of applications which are within the category of national and major planning applications. So a key element of that guidance note requires officers to present a report to committee when a proposal of application notice is submitted. The report sets out what officers consider to be the key issues or the key considerations in the determination of any subsequent planning application that's submitted in the future, but it also allows members the opportunity to identify any additional matters they would wish to see addressed when a planning application is submitted. Officers will then provide that feedback to prospective applicants for them to consider in formulating their proposal. So at this stage, very limited information about what an application might look like. It's a procedure that the applicant comes to us, tells us what public consultation they intend to carry out. We report that to members, identify what we consider to be the key planning issues, and invite members to identify any additional matters they would wish to see addressed. In terms of the specifics of this case, so this is a proposal application notice relating to a proposed solar farm and battery storage development on land at Mintriment. So the application site is located within the established commercial woodland plantation at Mintriment. It is located to the north of the B9113, which is the road which connects Forfar in the west with Montrose in the east. It's also just to the west of the A933, which connects Brecon in the north to Arbroath in the south. It's an 88 hectare area of land, around about 5 kilometres to the south of Brecon. Some members of the committee may recall there was previously a planning permission granted on the site for a fairly large-scale solar development in 2015. It's understood that a subsequent planning application or future planning application is necessary because of changes the applicant wishes to make to the development, which is likely to involve tracking solar panels as opposed to static solar panels. And the applicant also wishes to introduce an element of battery storage on site. So those changes are sufficient enough to require a new planning permission to be submitted. So this is the location of the site. There is a residential property close to the site in the central section, but the site is otherwise open agricultural land, which is completely surrounded on all sides by forestry. So officers set out in the report what they consider to be the key planning considerations. That is informed by the previous planning application that was considered, but as per procedure, members are invited to identify any additional issues in addition to those identified at paragraph 4.6.
Is that you, Ed, then completed on that one? Can I ask again on this one, have any members got any questions for Mr. Taylor, please? Sorry, Councillor Darnell.
Yeah, thanks, Ed, for the presentation. Is there persons living in the house, the property that's there at the moment, or is it a property that just belongs to the Wildlife Trust or something?
My understanding is it is a dwelling house. Now, whether it's occupied, I honestly don't know from the last time I was in that part of the world. But obviously, impact on the occupants of a residential property will be one of the key considerations for a future planning permission application.
Yeah, because obviously we've had a situation like this before where we had a resident's property was right in the middle of a solar farm, and there was a lot of, you know, the conversations weren't going down well. So I would like to find out if this property is occupied by any families, etc. Before this goes any further, to be quite honest, or if there's been any communication with any family in there, whether the house will be removed or taken over, or just concerns about the property, to be honest, Ed. That's the only thing I'm asking about. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Darnell. Councillor Beattie.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Do we have any information relating to the agricultural quality of the land?
At this stage, no, but that will be something that's considered as part of any future planning application.
Councillor Braze. Oh, Councillor Braze.
Yeah, sorry, I just lost my little cursor there. Okay, yeah, thanks, Convener. Notwithstanding what is in 4.6, that I'm reminded that when it comes to battery storage, previous applications before this committee on other sites, there have been issues raised concerning fires within battery storage. So I would probably like to have good information on prospects of fires within the battery storage, and also ways of dealing with that should it arise. Obviously, the fact that there is a residence pretty central to this proposed development, I would like information about that. And I would like to see proper and meaningful consultation on this, which is required, and I would expect the applicant for such a big development to really pull out the stops to make sure that proper consultation does take place.
Okay,
but I think Councillor Beattie does raise a good point about the quality of the agricultural land here.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Braze. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Convener. And just really, I suppose, a generic question, Convener. I was Community Council Chair up until the election there. I realised that on looking at both of these applications, they have to be taken on their merit, but they are in terms of pre-applications, am I right? Because I would have to be extremely careful in the next step. I'm not asking for advice, I'm really just making a comment here, because otherwise a local member should be making comments very careful.
I think this, just before Ms Taylor comes back, this gives you the opportunity, Councillor Clark, at least to ask the council officers just if you want them to examine any other issues that can be added into any potential future application on this, if you have any concerns that you wish them to investigate on your behalf as a local member as well. I
think then, Chair, I was just being extra careful there. I think then, in terms of just what Councillor Gray says, then these things need very, very, very good consultation. Because the one comment I would say when in Community Council Chair, I wasn't that too chuffed with consultations, really. I never felt that they were that great, to be honest. So that is something that should be landed on their doorstep. This is very important in these kind of things.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Clark. Are there any other comments from members? Okay, in that case, the key issues, as Mr Taylor said, are shown in your papers at paragraph 4.6. And this gives the opportunity, as I say, to members to ask whether anything else should be addressed here. We are learning, as I think Councillor Brace has said, there have been various applications before for solar farms, solar panels, and we are learning, I think, as a committee, as we go on each of these. Some have been approved, some have been rejected or refused. So there's a lot to learn in each of these. It gives us the opportunity. But this, at the moment, is just for noting. So can I ask the committee, is this noted?
Noted.
Noted.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's great to note this. So we'll move on again to the second of the three proposal application notices, which refers to land at Glams Road, Westfield Loan Forfeit Report 172/22. So again, if we can have slides, please.
The specific uses within the forfeit settlement here is shown, or the prospective application, I should say, is shown by the dotted red line to the left-hand side. The land which is identified in this proposal application notice is identified in the local development plan for residential development and is what use coming forward. To the north of the site is the established Orchard Bank Industrial Estate, and to the east of the site is the Westfield sort of part of Forfar. So it would be a residential expansion to the town, but it is an area which we see in terms of our strategy as coming forward for that. So in terms of the issues for the application, there are a number of issues, things like proximity to the industrial uses to the north, suitability of the design, impact on schedule, monuments in and around the site. So there are a number of issues identified in the report that would need to be addressed in any future planning application. Those at section or paragraph 4.5 of the report, but as per usual procedure, members are invited to identify any additional matters they would wish to see officers raise with a prospective applicant.
Present, are there anybody who wishes to raise any questions here for the officer, or whether they have any additional issues they'd like addressed? Councillor Nicholl?
Yeah, thank you, Convener. Mr Taylor, in the past it was brought to our attentions about the archaeological and anthrax on the site. Is there any update on this, or has it been all cleared up?
So at this stage, we don't have the information relating to or to support a prospective application. We just have an indication that an application is likely to come forward. But you raise valid points, and these are points we can go back to the applicant with, saying we expect these points to be addressed.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed, for that. Is there any other questions for Mr. Taylor? No? Okay, well, I say again, this is just for noting, and the key issues have been identified at paragraph 4.5 of this report. So again, can we just agree to note at this stage?
Noted.
Thank you very much. Right, members, will move on to agenda item 14, which again is further on the last of the three proposal application notices for land at Newtile Road in Muirhead, report 173/22. Again, Ms. Taylor, I guess you're leading on this. Could we have the slides, please?
Last but not least, our final proposal application notice, item 14. This is another residential or prospective residential development, this time of a proposal which is potentially up to 90 houses, but also includes a farm shop, orchard, open space and associated works on land at Newtile Road in Muirhead. So the prospective application site is located to the northwest of the village, as illustrated by the approximate position of the red dashed line. Members may note from this extract, which is the local plan settlement boundary for Birkhill and Muirhead, the site lies out with but adjacent to the development boundary. So that is one of the issues that would need to be considered as part of any planning application. Land is not currently allocated for residential purposes, and as I say, that is one of the key considerations that would apply to a future planning application. Other matters are listed, including things like impacts on agricultural land, and it is understood in this case that the land is prime quality agricultural land. But the application site or prospective application site is around 6.6 hectares in area and contains sections of the public roads from Muirhead to Cubrangus and from Muirhead to Newtile. So there's just a wee bit more detail. As I say, at this stage, we don't have any information about precise numbers, about the position of houses relative to existing housing, or anything like that. But we do think we have enough information to identify what are likely to be the key planning considerations. And as per usual procedure, they are listed in the report, section 4.9. And again, members are invited to identify any additional matters they would wish to see raised by officers with a prospective applicant.
Great, thank you, Ed, for that. So we'll start off with members, any questions and comments that they wish to raise here. And Councillor Dorn, we'll start with yourself.
Yep, thank you. I'd just like to note that I am in the area. I raised this before, but it didn't need to be noted for conflict of interest, but just a point to raise. And I would like to raise 2 points based around infrastructure for this proposal to look at in more detail, which are the capacity of local schools and also the capacity of the local GP and medical services in the area. And I'd like more detail on those. And again, like others have raised for other applications, I'd like to make sure that they are doing a good community engagement programme with people in the local area about the proposal as well.
Thanks, Councillor Dorn, that's useful. Move on to Councillor Darnell.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I remember as a rep being in this area, and I don't think the roads are particularly wide in this area for a lot of traffic. Could be wrong, might have changed it since I've been there, but I think the roads, I would need to have some information from the roads department for, you know, additional families with 90 houses, if the road is going to be suitable for this plan. So that's one of my concerns that I would like to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Darnell. Councillor Melville.
Yep, thanks, Convener. I just want to reiterate what Councillor Doran has said. I think community engagement on projects like these, particularly in small areas like Muirhead, are really, really important, and I would really like to see us put in a lot of effort into that stage of this. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Councillor Dorn, you've got your hand up still. Is that legacy or? Yeah.
No, that was just an extra point. I think I'm just adding to what Councillor Darnell said on about the road situation, particularly interested in the pavements, because I don't think there's a pavement on those roads, on either of the two roads. So that would be relating to kind of access to other facilities via pedestrian routes.
Okay, thank you again for that. Are there any other comments from any other members on this one? No, I think that these are all good points, and I think you know, in certainly on communication, I think, and consultation is something I'm a firm believer in strength of that, to make it as apparent as possible to engage with everybody rather than just putting a sign on a lamppost. We need to be better than that. I think as well, in issues of local schools capacities and also GP practices, I think they need to be looked into. They're not necessarily issues that will affect planning, but I think it's good to have the background information on these things before these things come forward. We can have this as well. This is a proposal that I'm noting is out with the local development plan, would cross over the main route into Muirhead. It's on prime agricultural land, but at this stage it's just a planning application notice, and we've noted some issues that are of concern, and Mr Taylor have noted these themselves. So if there are no further issues, then I think can we just agree to note this plan at this stage?
Agreed.
Great, thank you very much. That completes our agenda today. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you again at the next Development Standards. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks.